Alright, how's it going, everyone? Flip a coin here. Welcome to Nexus Chatter. This is going to be the first episode. Today we're here with Pat Yiu of Bob Ross Fan Club. And to start things off, Pat, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Who are you? What's your background in esports? And what's your background relative to Heroes of the Storm?
Hey, thanks for having me today. My name is Pat Yiu, and I'm the manager of Bob Ross Fan Club in Heroes of the Storm. My background in esports is I actually was a competitive player in StarCraft 1, and then I went over to League of Legends after that. I was a top challenger player for League of Legends and played in the Challenger series, and decided to pursue more of the business aspect of esports and opened up a gaming cafe where a lot of the LCS players practice during the Penny Arcade Expo that's in Seattle during August. We actually got featured in a couple of the TSM episodes back in 2013. In Heroes of the Storm, I actually got drafted into the game on Heroes Hype, which actually now runs the amateur series that's seeded into the BlizzCon qualifiers for this previous year, and then moved over to play tank for Cloud9 Vortex before retiring and moving over to where I'm at right now, which is Matcherino, another company that's inside the field of esports.
Cool, good stuff. Very fleshed out background, or so it seems.
Yeah,
That's
I've
cool.
been in the esports scene for quite a long time now.
Yeah, oh, that's cool. Very cool. So, Bob Ross Fan Club has proven to be a very successful supergroup of notable long-term figures in the hot scene. So how did the team come together? What was your involvement, if any, in kind of bringing the whole group together?
I actually had no involvement with the creation of the team, but I know pretty well how the team happened. The team came together when Arthlon and Zuna decided not to renew their contracts for Tempo Storm for 2016, and they actually wanted to create their own team, which they thought could probably be better than the current two top teams. And at the time, I believe they were Tempo Storm and Cloud9. And so they brought on McIntyre, who was the previous captain of Complexity, Urho, who was definitely a top ladder player, who had subbed in for a couple teams. He played on Complexity for a little while, but no one had really given him the chance to really showcase his own ability. And then also Kenma, who played for the original Cloud9 team that won the BlizzCon during the Alpha. And so they started off with that 5-man roster just to see where they could get. And they started off in Enter the Storm #1, which took place in the last couple months of 2015. And yeah, they actually did pretty well. They took first place in that while Cloud9 was in China. And then Arthlon got an offer probably around the middle time of when Cloud9 was in China, and decided to pursue his options with them. And so I pretty much came in to help when I contacted Fan to bring him on as our newest player. And currently I just deal with the press and sponsorship negotiations for the team.
Cool. Very good stuff. So with that said, Bob Ross Fan Club took first in Heroes Rising, going 2-0 over Team Blaze in the recent ESL qualifier. Since inception, Bob Ross has kind of been steamrolling the NA scene, or so it appears. With that said, you've yet to sign with a major name. Is that intended? You developed kind of a stigma among the fans as like a people's champion, this unsigned team. And major name history aside, do you wish to kind of grow Bob Ross as a brand, or are you waiting for the right offer or the right time to kind of move forward?
I actually think it's really cool that we're considered the players' champions. I think it really helps that Jesse Cox from Stellar Lotus they did that vlog about how he wanted us to pursue it as our own entity and grow our own brand. I think that realistically speaking, though, Heroes of the Storm is too little of a scene to be able to pull in enough sponsors to be able to match what an already developed organization can bring our team. We've been staying pretty quiet. We've gotten contacted with a little over a dozen organizations who would all want to pursue options with our team. But right now we're pretty much down to 2 teams that we really think we can grow with in 2016. So we'll probably be announcing right before the LA playoffs what organization that we're going to be sponsoring, or going to be partnering with.
That's awesome. Great stuff to hear. Definitely looking forward to that. So, something a little more off topic, but with the whole idea of being picked up by a sponsor or a brand instead of Bob Ross, it does come to some relevance. As a manager, I'm curious to know your thoughts on player salary transparency. It's a conversation that recently got stirred up by Travis Gopher with League of Legends. And is there a place for it in Heroes of the Storm? If not now, as the game is still in a pretty early stage competitively speaking, when do you think? Do you think if implicated in the scene, if players were public about salaries and brands were public about their player salaries, it would protect newer, younger players from kind of being pushed around by contracts they might not understand going forward in years to come? Or do you think it's just not the right time, not the right place for it thus far?
I think that in League of Legends, it's definitely important for them to have public player salaries. A lot of the players in the challenger scene, for someone who hasn't been in it, they've been underpaid for their time. They're expected to play anywhere from 40 to 60 hours, and they may or may not get a gaming house. And last year they get anywhere from $400 to $800 per month on salary. And realistically, you honestly can't live off of that salary. In Heroes of the Storm, it's pretty much the same way. I think that I don't know if a lot of the team salaries are public information, but some of the teams are a little bit overinflated for what the current viewership for the game are, and actually a lot of the major organizations have pulled out because the viewership just isn't big enough to be able to sustain the scene at the moment for how much players are expecting from their salaries. I think that if Blizzard does things correctly, there's definitely the possibility of increasing player salaries, but right now it's most of the teams are actually overpaying for their players.
Interesting. That's actually a very, very interesting point. The fact that we've seen a lot of brands drop out as quickly as they've kind of popped in. If I remember right, was it beta when Evil Geniuses was still in the game?
Yeah, that was when I first started, when I was on Heroes Hype, so probably the very end of 2014, beginning of 2015 is when EG dropped out. I want to say it's probably around like February or March of 2015 is when EG decided to take a break from Heroes of the Storm until the game got bigger.
Yeah, that sounds pretty right. Them, Complexity, just seen a lot of names kind of pop in and pop out, especially prior to, I guess you could say the first Worlds with the BlizzCon event.
Yeah.
Some very good points. So, tell us about Matcherino. What is it? What's your role as marketing director?
Well, Matcherino is a crowdfunding platform for esports. We started off primarily focusing on the community, so with viewer games and show matches. We dabbled a little bit into StarCraft and into Hearthstone. We actually saw a lot of success in StarCraft, and we're pretty well-known names inside that community now. But currently we're creating a tournaments feature. One thing as a player, when I was playing last year as a competitive player, I noticed how long it took for payouts. Some of these major tournaments can take anywhere from 6 to 9 months to get your prizing received. And for someone who's making a pretty low base salary, not being able to see money that you've won until half a year to 3/4 of a year later is pretty unacceptable. And so we're pretty much building a platform that will have instant payouts through PayPal, and we're actually partnering with quite a few large organizations within the industry. I can't really reveal too much about it, but over the next couple of weeks, you're definitely going to be able to see some of the new features that we'll be releasing for tournaments. And we just finished our funding round. We partnered with a couple large names inside of the video game industry as our investors, and we also partnered with some non-endemics such as Russell Okung from the Seattle Seahawks. So you'll get to see a couple of things that are not specifically directed at esports, but definitely fit into the crowdfunding aspect of video game streaming over the next couple months.
That's awesome. That's a really great thing to hear, and also a good cause. With that said, what's the prize money in terms of Heroes like in terms of payment? Have things been generally pretty speedy, or kind of the same deal, as much as 6 months?
To put into perspective, the administration payouts for BlizzCon actually just got paid out last week. Yeah, so I want to say a little bit over 4 to 5 months if it's a sanctioned event. ESL probably pays out anywhere from 4 to 6 months also, so you're looking at around half a year from anything over about $5,000. It'll probably take about half a year for you to get paid out. The smaller tournaments, they're normally pretty good about it. It's a $50 to $100 payout per player. Heroes Rising was actually really fast, the very first event of this year. They just had to make sure that all of the payments had finished off of their Kickstarter before they could pay out for us, and that was probably around 2 weeks just for processing time, and that one was really good.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, it's cool. I think it's definitely a good thing for any scene that you guys get your involvement in. That's awesome. Good stuff. So, want to pull back to ask another question about Bob Ross Fan Club. what's your big goals for Bob Ross Fan Club in 2016? The easy answer, is BlizzCon World Champion. But beyond that, not just in terms of tournament standing, what do you desire for the team this year? I know we already talked about the potential for, new sponsorship opportunities, but as a whole, what do you want to see out of your team?
Yeah, I think that, like you had said, definitely the goals for the team are to be the #1 in the world. I think that most likely we'll make it down to Seoul for the Spring Championships, and so we'll be able to finally play against Korea and China, and also Europe, who I think that we can probably do pretty well against. I'm a little bit worried, but with the proper practice and motivation, I think we can do really well. As a team, after we figure out our sponsorship in terms of organization, what I'd really like to do is I'd like to build up the streaming of our players. I want to create a brand around players like McIntyre or Fan, who are some of the more popular players in the industry, and start creating some content, whether it be like as meta-analysis or tier lists for competitive play. I think that there's a lot of possibilities in content creation that haven't been tapped into for Heroes of the Storm yet, and that's pretty much what our team's going to be pushing to become the foundation of for the North American scene.
That's awesome. Good stuff to hear. On the mention of Europe, just a little curious. In the U.S., we know it's kind of you guys and Cloud9. That's the rivalry. But in Europe or other parts of the world, are there any particular teams that stand out as the most formidable to you?
I think that MVP, I want to say it's called MVP Black. I haven't actually had a chance to follow the international scene that much. My players would definitely know a lot more about it, but I think it's MVP Black. That's the strongest team in Korea right now. There's a couple of new and up-and-coming teams from Korea. One of them was actually one of my friends is on the team Young Boss. So I think that Korea is going to get a lot stronger this year. In terms of China, I think that Zero is looking really good. EDG, E-Star, they all have. I would say that in general, their top 8 is probably just as good as our top 4. So yeah, I think that EU is kind of a grab bag. I don't really follow Europe that much, just because I think that Korea and China are the better innovators at the game, and when I spend my time looking at the other scenes, I generally look for the Asian scene. But I think that Europe definitely has strong mechanical players, and if their rosters can get a little bit more stable, I think that they definitely have the possibility of doing really good things in this current Spring Championship.
Awesome. Good stuff to hear. Alrighty, so that is going to conclude the interview. Pat, thank you very much for your time. Before we completely wrap up, any final statements, shout-outs, anything you'd like to say, words to the fans?
I just want to say thank you for supporting Bob Ross Fan Club thus far, and if you have the time, go ahead and check out Matcherino. We're just matcherino.com right now. Over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're gonna be completely revamping the website, and I hope that you guys come in. We're gonna probably do some stuff with Heroes of the Storm, and some stuff with a lot of Blizzard stuff in the next couple months, and then also some stuff that you probably haven't seen inside Esports yet. So just some very innovative things that it'd be really cool for you guys to check it out in the next couple months. And once again, thanks for having me over here. It's really good to talk with you guys. I think that a lot of the players get a lot of publicity, and there's a whole other side of esports aside from the actual competitive scene that hasn't really been tapped into yet, and it's going to be really interesting for the people who want to pursue this as a career over the next decade or so.
Cool. Thank you very much, man. Really appreciate your time. This was great. If you want to follow for any more Heroes of the Storm related content, whether it be guides, patch analysis, etc., hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. It's been Flip a Coin.